When you think about the idea of texting someone to make them think about you all day, the first thing that must be understood is that it's not really the collection of words that matters most. It's the energy that is flowing through those words. Words are only symbols. They are vehicles. But the real transmission happens beneath the surface. Every time you type a message, you are not just pressing letters on a screen. You are actually transmitting an energy signature, a vibration that reflects where you are mentally and emotionally at that moment. People can sense this without consciously realizing it. If you text out of insecurity, he may not know you are insecure, but he will feel a subtle heaviness, an energy that doesn't make him eager to read your message. On the other hand, when you send a text from a place of joy, confidence, and lightness, that vibration attaches itself to your words and lingers in his subconscious. He doesn't just read what you wrote, he feels what you meant. This is why some people can say the simplest thing, something that looks ordinary, and yet it lingers with you, while another person can say the exact same phrase, and it vanishes the moment you read it. The difference isn't in the dictionary definition of the word. The difference is in the consciousness of the one who sent them. Energy is more powerful than the literal message. If you carry yourself in harmony with self-worth, if you believe you are magnetic, valuable, and worth thinking about, then even a simple good morning text radiates in a way that captures attention. The energy amplifies it. He will look at it, and though he can't explain why, he will find himself returning to it later in the day, thinking of you, associating that good morning with a warm and uplifting feeling. Now, consider the opposite. Imagine you text someone while you're anxious, waiting desperately for a reply, questioning if he will respond, worrying about what he's doing. That energy bleeds into your words. You may type the most playful or charming sentence, but because it's charged with neediness, it carries a vibration of pressure, and pressure pushes people away. So it isn't the cleverness of your words that makes him think about you. It's the emotional state behind them. When your state is magnetic, the text becomes magnetic. Think about this principle in terms of frequency. Just as a radio station transmits on a certain wavelength, your thoughts and feelings transmit through your communication. If you wanted to think about you all day, you must first be thinking of yourself in a way that elevates your vibration. You can't hide energy. If you're aligned with joy and ease, that frequency will reach him. If you're aligned with fear and self-doubt, that too will reach him. This means the preparation for the right text doesn't begin when you open the chat box. It begins with the state you cultivate within yourself. Before you type, you ask, what energy am I transmitting here? Am I radiating abundance or lack? Am I expressing from fullness or from emptiness? When you text with the right energy, even the smallest message plants a seed in his mind. That seed grows throughout the day because it wasn't just words. It was a transfer of emotion. He may be working, distracted by responsibilities, but every thought in his mind will drift back and he will feel a pull toward you. This happens because your energy imprinted on his subconscious. And the subconscious is far more powerful than the conscious mind. He doesn't have to try to think of you. He will simply find himself thinking of you because your vibration has created that anchor. And notice, this isn't about manipulation. It's not about tricking someone into paying attention. It's about aligning yourself with such a strong, positive energy that your presence naturally occupies space in his mind. The text is simply the medium through which that energy travels. In fact, if your energy is powerful enough, the specific words matter less and less. A short line can carry more impact than a paragraph if the vibration behind it is pure and intentional. For example, a single playful word said at the right time with the right energy can echo in his mind far longer than a lengthy explanation of how you feel. If you think back to times in your own life, you've probably experienced this. Maybe someone once said something short, like a simple compliment, but because of the energy in their voice or the confidence in their presence, you remembered it for days. That is the same principle at work when you text. It's the invisible layer that makes the visible word significant. Without the energy, words are flat. With the right energy, words are unforgettable. So before you text, check in with yourself. Ask, am I texting from fear? Or am I texting from love? Am I seeking validation? Or am I sharing joy? If the energy is love and joy, then what you send will have a magnetic quality. He will feel that you are not asking for his attention, but radiating such confidence that his attention naturally gravitates toward you. And the more you practice this, the more powerful it becomes. Over time, your energy becomes consistent, and every message you send reinforces that impression. Eventually, he doesn't even need a new text to think of you. Your vibration has already imprinted so deeply that his mind naturally returns to you throughout the day. That is the true secret behind making someone think about you all day through text. It isn't about tricks. It isn't about saying the most poetic thing. It's about mastering the energy that flows through your words. When you understand that, you stop overthinking what to type and start focusing on how you feel while typing. Because energy is the silent messenger, and it is always louder than words. When you want to capture someone's attention through a message, you have to remember that the human mind is designed to latch on images more than it does plain text. The mind thinks in pictures, not in words. That is why a single phrase that sparks a mental image will stay with someone far longer than a long message filled with explanations. If you want him to think about you all day, Your texts should not just be informational. They should ignite his imagination. When imagination is engaged, the subconscious gets involved. And once something has reached the subconscious mind, it has the power to resurface repeatedly throughout the day. That is the art of planting yourself in his thoughts. Think about the difference between sending him a message like, I'm having coffee, versus I'm sitting here with this coffee that smells so rich, and I wish you could taste it. The first message communicates a fact. The second creates a scene. It paints a little picture that his mind can't help but fill in. He will visualize you sitting there. He will smell the coffee in his imagination, and he will begin to feel like he is part of that moment with you. And every time his own senses catch the smell of coffee throughout his day, his mind will be triggered to think of you again because you anchored that image in his imagination. That is how a simple text creates lasting presence. The imagination is one of the most powerful faculties humans have. It builds entire realities. It replays conversations. It extends stories that never even happened. When you send him a text that leaves room for his imagination to continue building, you are essentially giving his mind a puzzle it wants to complete. If you say something like, I can't stop smiling about what just happened, without explaining what it was, his imagination immediately begins racing. He'll picture a scenario. He'll wonder, he'll replay his own interactions with you. And this curiosity keeps pulling his thoughts back to you. That is far more powerful than spelling everything out, because when you tell him everything, his imagination has no work to do. But when you leave space, his mind fills in the blanks, and in filling them in, he keeps circling back to you. Even simple, playful hints can spark this effect. A message like, you'd laugh if you saw what I'm seeing right now, invites him to imagine you in that moment, even without details. His subconscious will start creating pictures, and those pictures become attached to you. And once the subconscious has an image, it replays it. That's how you become the subject of his wandering thoughts. When he's at work, driving, or lying down at night, it isn't because you demanded his attention. It's because you skillfully gave his imagination something to hold on to. It's also important to realize that imagination ties directly into emotion. When someone imagines, they don't just see, they feel. If you send him a text that creates a scene where he imagines being with you, laughing, sharing, experiencing something, his body begins to produce the emotions as if he were there. The subconscious cannot fully distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a real one. So when you spark his imagination with your words, you are not only occupying his mental space, you are creating emotional imprints associated with you. That's why a playful, imaginative text will make him smile even hours later, because the subconscious replays both the image and the feeling. The beauty of this principle is that it doesn't require you to write long, dramatic paragraphs. In fact, the shorter and more suggestive your text, the more room they leave for his mind to expand them. You don't need to describe everything in detail. You only need to provide the spark. It's like striking a match. You don't build the fire. You only light it, and the imagination takes care of the rest. A simple phrase, a playful suggestion, or even an unfinished thought can be enough. Something like, if you knew what I'm thinking right now, is powerful because it instantly stirs his imagination. He'll keep wondering, replaying, trying to guess. And every time he does, he's thinking of you. Notice how this differs from ordinary texting. Most people use text as a tool of constant updates, exchanging information, asking questions, giving answers. That has its place, but it rarely creates lasting impressions. It doesn't spark imagination, so it fades quickly. But when you treat texting as an art, as a way to plant seeds in his mind, you stop using it only for communication and start using it for connection. Every message becomes an opportunity to give his imagination something to hold on to. And in doing so, you ensure that his attention returns to you again and again without effort. When you master this, you'll find that even ordinary things can be transformed into powerful connections. A sunset, a book, a random observation. All of these can be sent in a way that invites imagination. The sky looks unreal right now. You'd love it. Immediately places you and him together in that scene in his mind. He will imagine standing there with you, and later, when he sees a sunset, he'll be reminded of you. This is how you create associations that last, associations that cause his thoughts to return to you even when you're not there. And remember, the imagination is endless. Once you spark it, it keeps going on its own. That means you don't need to constantly flood him with messages. A single imaginative text can live in his mind all day, resurfacing again and again. That is far more powerful than sending dozens of texts trying to hold his attention. Quality, in this sense, is infinitely greater than quantity, because the right image planted in his imagination will make you unforgettable in a way repetition never could. Curiosity has always been one of the greatest forces that guides human behavior. When a person is curious, their mind doesn't rest until they find some kind of resolution. It is like an open loop that keeps spinning, and until it is closed, it keeps pulling attention back to it. This is why when you're trying to make someone think of you throughout the day, curiosity becomes such a powerful ally. The moment you reveal everything in your messages, you take away the space for his imagination to play. But when you hold back just enough, when you leave subtle hints, when you allow mystery to remain, you create that open loop in his mind, and he keeps returning to it because the mind cannot help but chase after what it doesn't fully know. If you look at the way movies or stories are written, they don't give away everything in the first 5 minutes. They introduce just enough information to hook you, and then they let your curiosity pull you through scene after scene. You stay engaged because you want to know what happens next. The same principle applies when you text. If you text him in a way that gives him all the answers, the story ends right there. But if you text him something that makes him wonder, imagine, or anticipate, you give him a reason to keep replaying your words. He doesn't consciously think of it this way, but on a subconscious level, his attention keeps circling back to you because you've left him with a question that only you can answer. Curiosity also has a way of blending with desire. When someone is curious about you, they naturally begin to desire more of your presence, more of your energy, more of your time. They start to see you as someone who carries depth, someone who is not easily figured out, and that alone creates attraction. For example, if you send a text that says, "You'd never believe what just happened to me," and then stop there, you have given him a small dose of mystery. His mind begins racing. What happened? Why wouldn't I believe it? Is it funny? Is it exciting? Does it involve me? He will think about it until he gets an answer. And even while doing other tasks, that thought will surface again and again. You've turned a simple text into an anchor that holds space in his attention. What's important is that this curiosity doesn't come from playing games in a manipulative way, but from understanding human nature. People value what they cannot immediately grasp. When you reveal every detail of yourself at once, you remove the natural magnetism that comes with mystery. But when you allow space for him to discover you slowly, when you share pieces and hints instead of the whole story, you awaken his imagination and invite him to explore you further. The truth is, discovery is far more exciting than possession. The process of learning about someone little by little creates deeper emotional involvement than knowing everything right away. This is also why being unpredictable in your text can be so effective. If every message is predictable, he knows what to expect and curiosity fades. But if you occasionally surprise him, if you say things in ways that are different, playful or unexpected, his curiosity reignites. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Even subtle differences matter. Maybe one day you send something short and mysterious like, "You crossed my mind in the most random way just now," without explaining how. His mind instantly becomes active, filling in the blanks, replaying his interactions with you, imagining why you thought of him. The fact that you left it incomplete keeps him engaged. Curiosity thrives on gaps, and your role is to create those gaps in just the right way. Think of it as giving him puzzle pieces, but not the entire puzzle. Each piece you send makes him want the next one, and until he gets it, his mind keeps circling back. This is the same principle advertisers use when they create cliffhangers in commercials or episodes. They know the brain craves closure, so they delay it. In your message, delaying closure can be as simple as saying something that invites him to ask a question, or hinting at something without giving all the context. At the same time, curiosity works best when it is genuine. You can't force it by pretending or fabricating stories that don't align with who you are. The most powerful curiosity is created when you share authentic glimpses of your life or your thoughts, but in a way that is suggestive rather than exhaustive. Instead of telling the whole story of your day, you highlight a detail that makes him want to know more. Instead of explaining how you feel completely, you drop a hint that invites him to lean in closer. This creates a dynamic where he is always slightly intrigued, always a little bit pulled toward you because you are never fully figured out. When you master this, you begin to realize that curiosity doesn't just make him think of you. It makes him anticipate you. It makes him look forward to the next interaction because he knows he won't be handed everything at once. There will be something new, something to uncover, something to explore. This anticipation is what keeps him engaged even in the quiet moments because his mind is trained to expect that you will always leave him with something worth wondering about. And it is in those quiet moments when he is alone with his thoughts that curiosity does its strongest work. When you think about the messages that truly stay in someone's mind, it is never the ones filled with facts, schedules, or plain updates. It is always the ones that made them feel something. Human beings are emotional creatures, far more than logical ones. The mind may process information, but it is the heart that holds on to experiences. That means if you want a text to echo in his thoughts all day long, you need to anchor it in emotion. People forget details, they forget the exact phrasing, but they rarely forget how something or someone made them feel. A simple phrase sparks joy, curiosity, affection, or even playful longing will have 10 times more staying power than a paragraph of empty words. Emotions are like imprints on the subconscious. When you send a text that makes him laugh, smile, or even blush, that emotional reaction registers in his system and creates a memory throughout his day. Whenever his emotional state shifts, the subconscious has a way of replaying things that gave it a strong feeling. This is why a funny or lighthearted message you send in the morning can make him smile again in the afternoon without him even reading it. The feeling you created lives inside him and replays automatically. This is the reason why being intentional with emotion in your text is so powerful. You're not just communicating, you're creating anchors in his emotional memory. It doesn't always have to be about excitement or humor. Even subtle emotions leave strong imprints. A message that makes him feel seen, valued, or understood can stay with him just as powerfully if you send something that shows genuine appreciation, like, "I really admire how you handle things." It creates a sense of pride and warmth. That feeling becomes associated with you. Each time he recalls your words, even unconsciously, he taps in that same emotion. And naturally, his thoughts return to you. Emotion is the glue that binds thoughts together. And once that glue is set, keeps pulling him back toward you without effort. Think of the texts that have stayed with you the longest. They probably weren't about logistical details like, meet me at 5. They were the ones that sparked laughter, stirred your curiosity, or gave you butterflies. This because emotion brings life to words. Without emotion, words are just letters strung together. But with emotion, they become experiences. A well-placed compliment, a playful tease, or even a gentle reminder of a shared memory can awaken a whole set of emotions that will keep replaying in his mind. Every time he revisits that memory or that emotion, you are automatically part of it. This is also why timing can matter. A text that sparks emotion at the right moment can shape his entire day. Imagine he is in the middle of a stressful morning and suddenly he gets a playful or uplifting message from you. That text breaks his state, creates a rush of positive emotion, and instantly connects you to relief and joy. Later in the day, when he feels that stress again, his subconscious may remind him of your message as a way to recreate the relief he felt. You become linked to that shift in feeling, and as a result, his thoughts come back to you again and again. It's important to realize that emotional anchoring works best when it feels natural. Forced emotion rarely resonates, because authenticity is what gives the words their power. When you are genuinely amused, genuinely grateful, or genuinely affectionate, that authenticity carries through in your message, and he feels it. The subconscious mind is sensitive. It can sense when energy is aligned or when it is forced. That's why trying to fake emotion in a text often falls flat. But when you truly feel what you are expressing, even the simplest words can create a deep impact. You can also use shared experiences as emotional anchors. Bring up something you both laughed about, a small inside joke, or a moment you enjoyed together instantly activates the emotion of that experience. A text like, remember when you, doesn't just remind him of the event, it reawakens the laughter or connection he felt in that moment. The emotion returns to life, and once again, you are the one associated with it. This is one of the most natural and effective ways to keep yourself in his thoughts, not by creating something new every time, but by reviving emotions that are already part of your shared history. Even longing can be an emotional anchor when it is used playfully. If you send something like, wish you were here to see this, it creates a soft pull of desire. He begins to imagine being with you. He feels a slight ache of wanting to be closer, and that emotion lingers. Throughout his day, whenever he encounters something beautiful or enjoyable, that same feeling will return, and with it, his thoughts of you. Desire, when sparked lightly, can become one of the strongest emotions to keep someone's mind tied to yours. Ultimately, every message has the potential to either fade quickly or to echo for hours, and the deciding factor is the emotional weight it carries. When you focus on creating feelings rather than just sending words, you elevate your communication from surface level to unforgettable. You no longer have to wonder whether he will think about you, because the emotion you sparked will make sure that he does. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have when it comes to texting is believing that more equals better. That if you constantly stay in someone's inbox, you'll stay in their mind. But the truth is, flooding him with messages doesn't create magnetism. It often dilutes it. The power is not in the quantity. It's in the precision. A few well-timed, meaningful, and intentional texts carry far greater impact than dozens of casual updates. When you understand this, you shift from chasing attention to creating present, and that shift changes everything. Think about a song you love. It's not every note in the song that gives you chills. It's the precise notes, the timing, the pauses, the build-up that makes it powerful. Texting works in the same way. If you wanted to think about you throughout the day, you have to recognize that silence can sometimes be more powerful than constant communication. When there is space between your messages, his mind fills that silence with curiosity, anticipation, and replay. He goes back and rereads your words. He imagines how he'll respond. He feels the weight of your energy even when you haven't sent another text. That is how you become memorable, by giving him something to hold on to, not something to drown in. Consistency doesn't mean being ever present. It means creating a rhythm that feels natural and authentic. If your texts always come from a place of neediness, if you feel you must send something every hour just to remain in his thoughts, what you actually communicate is desperation. That vibration never inspires attraction, it drains it. But if your texts come from a place of fullness, of genuine inspiration, of wanting to share a moment or spark a smile, they carry weight. When he reads them, he doesn't just glance and move on, he absorbs them and they stay with him. There's a principle of contrast that works here. Imagine a conversation where one person talks nonstop, filling every gap with words, and another conversation where someone speaks less often but with depth. Which one do you remember more? It's usually the latter, because what is rare is often value. When you are selective with your text, when you choose to send only the ones that carry energy, emotion, or imagination, he begins to associate your messages with significance. He learns that when your name lights up on his screen, it means something. And because of that, your words hold space in his mind much longer. The goal is not to disappear, but to strike the right balance between presence and space. Too little contact and the connection fades. Too much and it becomes noise. But when you give him just enough, You create a rhythm that keeps him thinking of you in between. This rhythm allows anticipation to build, and anticipation is one of the strongest forces in attraction. When he knows he'll hear from you but doesn't know exactly when, he stays alert to your energy, and your texts land with more impact because they arrive at just the right moment. Another aspect of consistency is alignment. If one day your messages are lighthearted and confident, and the next day are needy and filled with worry, the inconsistency confuses the energy. It makes your presence unstable, and unstable presence doesn't anchor in the mind. But when you consistently text from a space of confidence, positivity, or genuine emotion, you create reliability. He comes to associate you with a steady vibration, something he can count on, and that reliability makes your text part of his inner landscape, even when you're not messaging. He remembers the consistency of how you make him feel, and that memory is what brings his thoughts back to you. Precision also means being intentional with timing. A well-placed text early in the morning can set the tone for his entire day. A thoughtful message in the middle of his busy schedule can shift his energy and link relief or joy directly to you. A playful line before bed can be the last thing he thinks about before sleep, which often means you'll also be the first thought he has when he wakes. These moments matter far more than filling every gap of the day with chatter. It's about knowing that the right message at the right time has a ripple effect that lasts far longer than any number of filler texts. Think of your texts as seeds. If you plant too many seeds all at once, they compete for space and crowd each other out. But if you plant one strong seed in fertile ground, it grows and takes root. Each message should feel like that, something that grows in his mind rather than something that passes through unnoticed. And just like a gardener doesn't dig up the soil every few minutes to see if something is happening, you don't need to constantly send messages to make sure you remember. You trust that what you planted has power and you let it grow. This approach shifts your energy entirely. Instead of anxiously waiting for a reply, you operate from a place of knowing that your words have weight. You don't measure your impact by the number of responses, but by the depth of connection. When you value precision over frequency, your communication begins to feel more intentional, and he begins to feel more drawn to you. He doesn't think of you because you're always in his notifications. He thinks of you because the energy of your words continues to echo long after the screen has gone dark. Every text you send is a reflection of how you see yourself, whether you realize it or not. The words you choose, the way you phrase them, even the timing and tone, they all carry an invisible mirror of your self-image. If you see yourself as valuable, magnetic, and worthy of attention, that belief shapes the energy of your communication. On the other hand, if you doubt yourself, if you see yourself as someone who has to prove their worth or constantly chase validation, that also shows through in your text. The fascinating truth is that people often don't consciously recognize this, but they feel it. The vibration of your self-image radiates through every message, and that's what determines whether someone feels drawn toward you or drifts away. Think about someone who carries deep confidence. They don't have to use fancy words or overly long messages. Their presence is felt even in a short line. A simple thinking of you from them lands differently than the same words from someone who is insecure, because behind those words is a foundation of belief. Confidence creates clarity, and clarity makes the message resonate. In contrast, someone who doubts themselves often adds extra words, over-explains, or second guesses what to say. The message may look fine on the surface, but the energy behind it feels shaky, and that shakiness is what lingers. Texts that come from insecurity rarely stick in the mind in a positive way. They fade because the energy behind them doesn't inspire. Your self-image also determines how consistent your energy is in communication. When you value yourself, you don't feel the need to constantly check if someone is thinking of you because you already know your worth leaves an impression. This confidence allows you to be selective, intentional, and relaxed in your messages. That relaxed energy is attractive because it signals security and strength. But when your self-image is weak, you may feel you need to overcompensate with constant reminders, long messages, or seeking reassurance. Instead of radiating strength, you radiate need, and need never creates magnetism. When you hold a powerful self-image, your texts naturally carry authority without force. They make him think about you not because you demanded attention, but because you embodied it. It's the difference between whispering from a place of certainty and shouting from a place of doubt. The whisper of certainty is heard louder than the shout of insecurity. A person who knows they are magnetic doesn't try to convince. They simply express themselves and allow the energy to do the work. That is why some people can send just one playful or thoughtful message and it stays in someone's head for days, while others send dozens and are forgotten within hours. It is not the words, it is the self-image behind them. Self-image also affects the way you handle silence and response time. If you see yourself as valuable, you don't panic when he doesn't reply immediately. You know your energy has already landed. You know your presence lingers. And you trust that the connection doesn't vanish because of a gap in communication. That trust allows your text to breathe. And the very absence of chasing gives him space to think of you on his own. But if your self-image is weak, silence feels like rejection. And you may rush to send more, filling the space with anxious energy. That anxious energy undermines the magnetism you wanted to create because it shifts the dynamic from attraction to pressure. It's also worth realizing that your self-image shapes the kind of emotions you transmit in your text. When you see yourself as someone who is enough, your words carry warmth, playfulness, confidence, and authenticity. Those emotions are magnetic because they make him feel good when he reads your messages. But if your self-image is rooted in fear or self-doubt, your text may unintentionally carry neediness, jealousy, or uncertainty. Even if your words are light on the surface, the undertone gives away the insecurity. People often remember undertones more than actual words because energy is felt more deeply than logic. This is why the work of creating presence in someone's mind begins long before you type a single word. It begins with how you see yourself in your own mind. If you believe you are worth thinking about, if you see yourself as radiant, confident, and valuable, then your texts naturally reflect that. They don't have to be forced. They don't have to be rehearsed. The vibration of your self-image flows through them. And that vibration is what anchors you in his subconscious. He may not analyze it. He may not even understand why your words stay with him, but they do because your energy spoke louder than your text. The truth is, your self-image sets the tone for the entire connection. If you elevate it, if you feed it with positive beliefs about who you are, every message you send becomes a natural extension of that power. Your texts stop being about trying to get him to think of you and instead become reflections of the fact that he will think of you because your presence is unforgettable. Self-image isn't something you tack on at the last moment. It is the silent foundation underneath everything you communicate, the invisible signature that stamps every word with your energy.